Hi there once again. It's great to see you here on Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. I want to start this week by sharing part of a presentation from my first guest. And it points out to the audience, I want to point out to the audience, all these things that our lives are built on trust. Take a look at this list and consider what you're seeing right here. Our lives are built on trust, our families, our marriage, social relationships, workplace relationships. And it continues. You put trust in dining out. You put trust in purchasing any product. Driving, think about that, and other drivers who are out there on the roads, putting trust in them. Flying on a commercial airline, heck yeah, that's got trust in it. Hairdresser or barber, sometimes that's the worst trust you can have. And your 16, think about your 16-year-old at home and the trust you put in that person. I'm delighted to have a friend join us this week. He has been around this country sharing his business acumen with corporations, business leaders, and change makers for decades. He's a believer in passion and purpose and how leadership can make or break a business or any organization for that matter. Great to have Clint Longenecker here with us on Leading Edge. Good to see you, my friend.
Jeff, nice to see you too. Happy 2025. And to your listeners out there, what a privilege to be with Jeff, who has become a legend in Toledo, Ohio. So we appreciate what you do for our community.
That's very nice of you to say that. It's only you get older and you start getting accolades like that.
Well,
you're around one place for a long time. So
that's a good thing.
You're not alone in delivering this message. I wanted to share with people at home what we were just saying. In fact, I wanted to kind of show them something from your partner on this message, General John Gronski. He says, and take a look at this, it doesn't matter what your profession, whether the military, business, healthcare, or education. As leaders, we must do things that build trust and stop doing the things that bust trust. We'll get into those things in just a minute. Trust is the foundation for all great relationships and high performance teams. Talk about the Major General, your meeting of him, and you guys kind of simpatico coming together with these ideas.
Absolutely, Jeff. So I do a lot of work for the United States military. It's a real privilege to serve our senior leaders and everybody associated with the military and intelligence community. I met John at the Army War College a number of years ago, and we were talking about the importance of trust in combat situations. And so he is a big believer in building teams and having great leaders in place to do just that. So we were talking
when
life
and death is on the line.
Where life and death is absolutely on the line. And it requires really competency and character on the part of the leader. And people are quick to pick up on those two things. Is my boss, is my leader competent? Does he or she know what they're doing? At the same time, do they demonstrate great character? Meaning, can I trust their word? Are they a person of integrity? Do they make wise choices? Are they ethical in their approach to things? So he and
Let me stop you right there.
Please.
Is it common sense? Is there just a baseline understanding or that somebody should have of what competency looks like, what character looks like?
Yeah, great point. So I would make this comment. Competency is a person has the requisite skills to effectively perform their job. And when you operate in a world, so a lot of your listeners are operating in spaces that are rapidly changing, it is imperative that we keep our skill set up to snuff, that we keep it appropriate for the position that we hold in this rapidly changing world. Secondly is the character part. So do you keep your word? Are you known as a person who always does the right thing? Do you operate within the confines of the system you operate in, or do you bend the rules? Do you always speak truth? Are you always honest? Do you operate within that space of, listen, we always do the right thing? Yeah. So those are the competency and character issues, and it affects people who are followers. So if you find somebody of high character, high competency, and they're trustworthy, we'll work harder for them, we'll care more for them, we'll look after them, we'll respect them, there'll be more creativity, more cooperation, all these positive things flow from that. Conversely, think about somebody you've worked for that you weren't quite sure where they were coming from. And that you may not have complete trust in them because they don't like you or care for you or don't represent truth to you. There's a whole bunch of things associated with it. Well, we'll back away. We won't be as committed. We won't be as creative. We won't be as communicative with that group.
Let me give you an example and see if you can work off of this at all. Detroit Lions spent years in mediocrity, even below mediocrity.
All of a sudden, decades.
Yes, that's fair. Dan Campbell comes in. He's seen it. He's done it. He's that alpha male kind of figure who has come in and resurrected that organization.
Yes.
Do you use him as a guy of competency and character?
Absolutely. He demonstrates passion, he demonstrates competency, he demonstrates character. And I think
Now, I have to point out, we're taping on Thursday. We have no idea, this airing on Sunday, we have no idea if they won Saturday night or not.
Yeah.
We hope they did, but anyway.
But having said that, though, it comes down to, it's so utterly important that the person that is leading us be a person that we can look up to and that they be trustworthy. So think about it. What words come along with being trustworthy? Integrity, character, reliability, ethical positions on things. So at the end of the day, this is a pretty important dynamic. And yet, like Albert Einstein said, it is our job to make the complex simple.
Yeah.
So trustworthiness can be viewed as kind of a complex thing. We got to get back to basics and hit the reset button in many cases to get to a point where we can start and make sure that we're, from this point forward, doing everything the right way, competency and character.
We've got a bunch of trust builders. We've got trust busters, which were mentioned just a bit. We're going to dive into those. You stick around for another segment?
Absolutely.
All right, Clint Longenecker is going to stick around. Leading Edge, coming back right after this. Clint Longenecker joining us once again. 38 years at the University of Toledo.
Yes,
we were
sir.
just talking about that. Professor Emeritus.
Which means in Latin, really old guy.
We're talking about trust. We're talking about leadership. I thought I'd point you, especially in the new year, because people may be turning a new leaf, and maybe they've been in the background. Maybe they never thought, I can lead. I can be that guy who others follow, but you're saying it's in all of us.
Well, I think the potential's there for so many of us. And, you know, a lot of us are late bloomers. You know, we're both Toledo guys.
Yeah.
And we're given opportunities. We took it because of our DNA, our education, our parents, and the community we grew up in. We took advantage of those opportunities. And you know, in our own right, we've become leaders.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, we know what we're doing in our professional areas, and we're developing ourselves in that regard. Always room for improvement. As a 69-year-old, I think I've learned more the last couple years than the previous 5 years. It's been really a lot of fun.
Isn't that crazy how that works?
It's terrific how it works.
I told my wife, I said, I don't think it makes any sense for 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds to be going to college, because I did better at 50 getting my master's degree and understanding the world than I would have thought any period of my life.
And as a lifelong educator, there's great truth in what you speak. So we did this study, though, initially then to study a group of senior leaders and say, where does this issue of trust fit in? And here's the question for you. What factors cause you to build trust with your people? What factors cause you to break or bust trust with your people? And it
Let's run through a couple of them.
Well, it started with the good general getting us thinking about this in combat, and we spilled it over into the modern workplace, and they shared, this group, the sample size of almost 400 leaders shared some terrific lessons with us.
Yeah, one of those, I'm going to read through some of this, and you can comment briefly. Consistently demonstrating a genuine and authentic interest in respecting and knowing people. Diving in, kind of knowing your workforce.
Yeah, we trust people if they know us. No
Yeah.
question about it. Go ahead.
That's not being soft, though.
No, I think you've got to know people. You know, the more you know about people, the easier it is to motivate them, because you know what makes them tick.
Yeah.
You know, and that's of paramount importance, especially with the younger workforce.
A couple more trust builders, always following up on commitments and promises. Why is that important?
Our word has to be golden. So if we say we're going to follow, and you will hear people do this often, they'll say, hey, let me get back to you on that. And they don't. What happens? The trust is chipped away at. Let's get together sometime and have lunch. I don't follow up. We're chipping away at that. So our word has to be golden if you're going to be a difference-making leader.
Absolutely. Leading by example in terms of honesty, fairness, and ethical decision-making.
Because people will follow what we do before they follow our words. Fair?
Makes sense.
Yep.
Lead by example. Demonstrate ongoing job competency, effective and timely decision-making, and confidence in doing your work.
Bingo. We have to keep current and relevant with the positions we hold. No substitute for competency.
Yeah. Another trust-building behavior, clarifying performance expectations and staying properly aligned on an ongoing basis with your people.
Absolutely. And if you think about the lineup, if a leader is going to truly be effective, trust is just part and parcel. It's leadership 101. So if we do the things you just mentioned effectively in the workplace, we increase the likelihood of people following us until we get to the issue of maybe trust busting.
Absolutely. So what are the behaviors of trust busting and breaking that trust? Lying and manipulating information data for personal gain.
Absolutely. Allowing the rules to be bent to serve me, looking after myself and allowing my ego and my hubris to get out of control so everything becomes about me. And when leaders behave in that fashion, they are shedding followership. They are shedding commitment, they're shedding creativity, and all these other good things that come along with being trustworthy.
Unethical behavior or bending the rules to suit themselves.
Here's an awesome example. My last trip to the Army War College, a person was sharing with the group. I had a company commander, a captain, and the captain, they were in Afghanistan, and he decided he was going to light up his cigarette with his executive officer in the dark at night. And everybody in the team was outraged, and the platoon was outraged at this guy because it could have brought mortar fire down. He bent the rules because he had a craving for cigarettes that applied to him and him only. Horrible example.
I'm going to read just a couple of more off. Infusing fear, uncertainty, and doubt into the working relationships, failing to keep commitments and not being a person of their word, playing favorites and showing favoritism, finally gossiping about others, and rumor mongering.
Absolutely. Those are all things that will chip away at a leader's effectiveness and their ability to have a great impact. Not an average impact, but a great impact on the people that they're called to lead.
Yeah, one of the things that you pointed out, and I wanted to read this real quickly, if a leader lacks the skills necessary to lead, but is a person of high moral character, the employees will practice a level of patience to see if the leader acquires the necessary skills, as people will typically want that individual to succeed.
Absolutely.
I thought that was a very interesting point.
It's a terrific point.
Let them get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, we can't always control. I find myself in situations where I have to learn very quickly, but frequently people will give me the benefit of the doubt because they know that I'm cheering for them, I'm working for them, and that I can be trusted, if that makes sense along the way.
It's great to have these kind of conversations going into 2025, and I think the work dynamic has really changed over the last decade.
Absolutely. And I do know this, that people are much more skeptical. And there's a lot of research on the issue of cynicism. People are much more cynical than they were a decade or 2 decades ago, no question about it.
Yeah.
We can, if you're in a leadership position, we can very quickly prove that we are worthy of people following us by demonstrating the very things you just spoke of.
Yeah, Clint, it's great to see you.
Thank you, and keep making a difference in our community. And leaders out there, take the time to think, work on that skill set, and keep making a difference. God bless you good.
Nice job, my friend.
Thanks, brother.
Good to see you.
Appreciate
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. My next guest has a life story that could possibly fill an entire, maybe 2 shows. But as a columnist of Fletcher Ward's Sojourner Truth, something written about her and something she wrote recently caught my eye. I wanted to make sure that she was open to coming in and sharing some of her thoughts with us today. Take a look at this. She recently wrote in Sojourner Truth, "For Black therapists, the work extends beyond clinical skills. Many face the challenge of balancing their personal experience as Black individuals in a predominantly white and female field." It continued on. "The lack of diversity in the mental health profession can sometimes make it difficult for therapists of color to find mentors or colleagues who understand their unique challenges." And it continued on to read, "Moreover, Black therapists often face the pressure of being seen as the representative of the Black experience." Please welcome to Leading Edge for the first time, licensed professional clinical counselor, Bernadette Joy Graham. It's so good to have you on the show.
Well, thank you.
Talk a little bit about what you wrote right there.
I was in a mood.
Okay.
I believe because the year was ending and I wanted to make it special.
Yeah.
And Fletcher always sends me an email and says, "By the way, it's calendar time." You know?
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, can I have the cover?" And he was like, "Sure."
What about,
I said, wow.
You and I, our initial conversation when I said I'd like to have you on the show, we started talking about mental health as far as getting out to the minority community and making sure that they recognize the fact, 1, they need it, 2, they can trust it, and 3, it works.
Right.
That's a huge mountain to climb, is it not?
Yes, it is. And
why is
it's
that?
not just for people of color, it's for human beings overall.
Yeah.
For people of color, of course, it's more difficult because of the stigma. But It's mental health should be for
Let me
everyone.
stop you there. The stigma as far as healthcare, period, or the stigma as far as mental health?
Mental health.
Okay.
I wish that we could come up with another word for it that was cool.
Yeah.
And maybe it wouldn't be such a huge stigma. But when people
Why do you
hear
think that is?
because they don't want to sound crazy. And that's not a bad word. I don't use it. I don't think it's appropriate. And people come into my office and they often say, I just want you to fix me, tell me what's wrong with me.
They're that blunt.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I say, no, there's nothing, it's not, what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you, starting with your childhood.
Right.
And that's where it leads from. And that's why we're all unique. Our childhood brings us into our adulthood, and our experiences shape our lives and make us who we are today.
One of the things you brought up to me, you said, I'm a female in this field. However, there is a lack of black males who are actually clinical therapists who can treat this. Because you said somebody coming in wants to be treated, they want to see somebody who reflects them. True?
Yes, especially so in a small geographical area like this. I basically spent a lot of time in the Washington, D.C. area and the DMV area, which was much more diverse, of course. And that's where I received my education from. So there it was easy. And then coming back to Toledo, it was much more difficult because it's a smaller community, a smaller black community. It's not well received to go into therapy because people think they're crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. Just work it out. And that's not true.
How do you break down the barriers? I mean, when you have somebody come in and you can see this is going to take a little time, how do you get through?
First of all, it's building a relationship, that therapeutic relationship. So I've had.
Well, first of all, it's big they got into the door, right?
Right. That's the educational piece. I'm sure you have a great healthcare plan. Do you know if you have vision? Do you know the difference between the deductible and copay? Most people don't. They're glad to have healthcare. And then they make a therapy appointment and they're like, well, this doesn't cover therapy. What? I didn't know that. And then the challenge of finding a therapist. They don't know where to go. There's no billboards. It's not just, laying around. So there's a lot of challenges and they just give up. Unless they have a friend that's been in therapy or they've seen a commercial or a podcast or something. It's getting a lot better.
So back to my original question, how do you break through?
So I build a relationship with them. And I'm very good at just feeling people out. And I've had so many experiences, and I am biracial, so my family is like the Benetton family. We're all different races and all different colors. And I've had a number of experiences.
See, you and I understand the Benetton reference. I think a lot of our younger viewers will have no clue what you just said.
Just Google it.
Yeah, exactly. No, but go on.
So I was fortunate in that area.
And that brings you challenges? That helps you get through?
Both. It helps me get through because I can relate to everyone, mostly. And I was in the military for 7 years, so I traveled all over the world. And I was always interested in learning about the culture. And I specialize in grief and bereavement. So that's what I wanted to know. Like, when people die in your culture, what happens? What do you do? How do you feel? What kind of things do you guys do? And I loved it, and I got years of experience of that. Now, at that time, I did not know I was going to go into mental health. I had no clue. It came to me by a professor at University of Maryland. He was like, you'd be a good therapist. And I'm like, really? Wow, okay. So I kind of pursued that, and it went on from there. So I can relate to people really well. I'm very empathic.
Let's speak to somebody out there today who may be watching, who has maybe been kicking the tires on, this is something I need, right? They've defined it. They've realized, I think I need to talk to somebody. So what's the next step?
The next step is, first, do you have health care? Because it's expensive. If you do have health care, look into your plan and find out, what it covers. You can also call your insurance company or get online. They have portals now to find therapists in the network. You can go on psychologytoday.com, which is huge, and find therapists. And you can filter out because and it's not discriminatory. If you want a male, a female, someone who's gay, someone who's older, someone who's younger, you can
someone
filter
who's
out
biracial.
Right, you can filter out all those things. Christian, Muslim, filter out all those things. Someone that you think that you'll feel more comfortable with, and then a list of therapists will populate, and you read their bios and choose the one that you want.
Yeah.
But it's it's uncomfortable. It is. Going to someone and telling them your deep, dark secrets, and you don't know them from a can of paint.
And it's not a sign of weakness.
No, it's not at all. It's a sign of strength, because you talk to yourself and you said, I need some help. I need help. And that's a huge thing. I mean, suicide, I think the suicide month was last month or something, and that was huge. And it's always huge. The statistics go up and down depending on what's happening in the world.
And you also pointed out, we've got about a minute left, from an age range, there are no barriers. I mean, you see it all.
Yes. Children on up to, 80 years old. And
but I do want to point out, she's working on a book. and one of her thesis, I think one of her thesis statements is she wants to see mental health into elementary level children.
Yes, K through 12, because they can learn to code, they can learn math, physics, they get to college, adulthood, they have no emotional relationships.
Yeah.
And they're intelligent, but they don't know how to relate to people or the world. So I haven't used geography or geometry yet. I don't know about you, but I would have loved to have, classes in life skills.
Yeah.
Emotional regulation.
I once heard an ER doctor say, I didn't learn enough about nutrition when I was in medical school, and it would have made all the difference to help some of my patients. It's a pleasure meeting you.
You as well.
Thank you for coming in, and good luck in the new year.
All right, thank you.
We'll be back right after this. Thank you once again for spending some time with us here on Leading Edge. If you missed any part of our discussion, you can catch Leading Edge on WTOL 11+. We'll see you next time.